already 2 days since polls closed in California, and we're still waiting to see who will make the November runoffs. In the governor's race, Republican Steve Hilton is maintaining a tight lead against Democrat Javier Becerra, but there's still 40% of the vote left to go. And in the mayor's race, Spencer Pratt maintains his second place spot with 66% of the vote in. There's still a lot of counting left to go, and now the president's saying, without evidence, fraud. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "There's big cheating by the Democrats," he said Democrats, in California, adding a federal investigation is underway, and he repeated the baseless claims also in the Oval Office.
You see that, so what's happening in California? They're rigging the election. They think it's going to be 7 or 8 days before we know who won the election. But the numbers are looking strange because without any vote counting, the numbers dropped very precipitously for two Republicans that are doing well, that had been doing well. And I hope you're all watching it because I'm watching it very closely.
We are, and there is no evidence of any fraud presented. The reason it takes so long to count in California, and it is long, is because of the state's policies. Every registered voter receives a mail-in ballot. They can be postmarked up to Election Day, and they have to be received no later than 7 days after Election Day, and then you still have 10 days to cure signature verification issues. Joining me now, Democratic Congressman from California, Mike Levin. Good to see you, Congressman. I mean, look, these kinds of fraud allegations made by the President of the United States, they have really become par for the course for him. A number of seeds he has planted over the years. But are you concerned that there may be some who are buying into the allegations of fraud given the delay in California?
You know, Laura, I have heard the president for years rail against California elections, and I will tell you that as somebody that has had to wait for that count every election for the last several elections, that of course we'd like for it to go faster, but the principle is that every eligible voter has to have their vote counted. And we have the law in California that says if you turn that ballot in and it's postmarked on Election Day, that there will be enough time to count the ballot. One thing that is
7 days they have from that. Unlike other states like Florida, for example, who's had their own issues, they have postmarked by that date and it can be counted. People have suggested that.
Correct. And look, I think there is a new law in effect this election, and we're going to see how it works. The governor has signed that says that all those registrars in all of our counties have to get everything counted within basically 2 weeks. So we should have pretty much all the results to determine the outcome of all of our races up and down the state by the middle of the month.
Do you want that faster? I mean, you must want it faster. 2 weeks is a long time.
Of course you do.
But as a voter, they want to know who represents them or who has a viable chance to do so.
Absolutely. I would say we're a big state. We have to do it as quickly as possible while still maintaining the principle that every eligible voter can have their vote counted fairly and properly. And I think we should look for whatever ways we can to continue to accelerate the count.
You don't see a delay as fraud fodder at all?
Absolutely not. And there's no evidence whatsoever, any sort of objective evidence from any rational person who's looked at this through any sort of objective lens who has reached any different conclusion.
I want to travel with you a little bit to some of the races that are happening. You've got Steve Hilton, you've got Spencer Pratt, and even if neither end up winning, they have made their mark in terms of their claims that this should not be a sort of one-party rule in California. Spencer Pratt alone has given a run for the money of an incumbent mayor who previously was a member of Congress. And of course, Hilton, you know his history as well. I mean, should Democrats be concerned by the performances of these two in particular?
I think Democrats should not be complacent. I think we have to meet voters where they are, and I think we always try to learn from every election. I will tell you, though, that at the end of the day, I think we're going to have a great Democratic governor, and we're going to have a great Democratic mayor. And having served with Karen Bass, I really hope that she will win, and I think that it's certainly looking like Javier Becerra will be our next governor in California, but we'll wait for every vote to be counted fairly and properly, as we just discussed.
Should Democrats, however, incorporate some of the dismay and disdain that seems to be apparent for those who are saying, look, I don't like what's happened so far, even if they ultimately end up becoming, incumbents as Democrats. Is there a lesson to be learned even from how they have performed?
I think there's always a lesson. At every election, I try to learn from what has happened. And for me, I've always done very well with independent voters. And trying to meet people where they are and recognizing that most people are not as tuned in to day-to-day politics. And you have to, ultimately respond to the concerns. Clearly, the concerns today are costs. Everything is too expensive, not just in California, but everywhere. And we have to respond to that. Inflation, the economy. But people are also deeply concerned about the corruption that they're seeing in this country. It is unprecedented, and they are demanding that we stand up and we stop it.
You actually have, along with your colleagues AOC and Jason Crow, you've recently launched what's called the End Corruption Caucus. What would the main priorities be, and how would you effectuate the end of corruption?
I think the key is taking all of that anger and that resentment out there that we see towards these unprecedented acts of corruption and turning it in to an actual legislative platform that we can enact if we're so fortunate to take back the Congress, ultimately to take back the White House. Things like getting the dark money out of our political system, banning members of Congress from being able to trade stock. There are a whole host of other ideas out there. We need to compile them, and we need to enact the ones that will ultimately pass. And look, it's not going to be easy. None of this is easy. The Supreme Court has made it even more difficult on the campaign finance side. But we've got to fight back, and enough is enough.
Is part of the plan an eye towards impeachment, which normally was the main remedy for corruption?
What I would say is I'm not afraid of impeachment. I voted twice to impeach the President of the United States.
But not for Nome, right? The timing of that you thought was inappropriate.
That is correct. And turned out that situation resolved itself with Kristi Noem. And there's still more to learn about Kristi Noem. Here's the thing. Because we haven't had actual oversight and we haven't had an actual functioning Department of Justice under the Trump 2.0, we really don't know the extent to which Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski were engaged in corrupt acts. We're going to find out, and I think they'll be held to account as they should be.
I want to ask you about Bill Pulte, because the president was asked today about his decision to name the housing official, again, his name is Bill Pulte, as the acting DNI, despite lacking experience in the area of intelligence. Listen to his answer.
It's an acting position. It's not a permanent. He's not going to be permanent because, I don't think he'd want to be permanent. But he's a very smart guy, and he may find out some things about the rigged elections, et cetera, et cetera. I think he'd like to do it. I think he wants to do it very much. Got a lot of energy. But he'll be very good. Again, it's not a permanent position.
I mean, I don't know what temporary looks like and how long that is. You can make a lot of headway or problems if you were even temporarily in a position. Do you think an acting DNI ought to be investigating rigged elections, even if it's on a temporary basis, the president says?
Well, certainly not if it's the allegation is a domestic one rather than a foreign one. That's specifically not what the DNI is supposed to do. And Pulte's only qualification seems to be his willingness to go after Donald Trump's enemies, which is what he's been doing, ginning up crazy investigations and really doing whatever the president has wanted. So I see the through line for him and Todd Blanche as well as being loyalty, as being willingness to do whatever it takes, whether it's legal or illegal, whether it's corrupt. They really don't seem to care, and that seems to be their main thing they have going for them, and that's all this president seems to care about.
Concerning, to say the least. Congressman Mike Levin.